To call the meeting to order at this time. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Avon.
Here.
Caledonia.
Here.
Canisius.
Here.
Geneseo. Groveland. Lester.
Here.
Lima.
Here.
Livonia.
Here.
Mount Morris.
Here.
North Dansville.
Here.
Nunde.
Here.
Here.
Portage.
Here.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Here.
York.
Here. David, if you would please, section will read us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my pleasure this afternoon to introduce Gunnery Sergeant Barbara Jane Lemon. Ms. Lemon was born in Rochester, New York, and was a graduate of Livonia Central School. After high school, Barb enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. She completed basic training at Marine Corps Recruit Depot on Parris Island in South Carolina. Upon completion of basic training, she continued her military occupational specialty 0193 Personnel Administration Chief School at Camp Pendleton in California. Upon completion of her military training, Barb was assigned to the 1st Marine District in Manhattan as an administrator. For her next assignment, she completed basic recruiter and career planner courses as well as the career recruiting program and worked as a Marine Corps recruiter in Long Island. She completed her last duty station with the 8th Tank Battalion in Rochester. Barb served honorably from February 4th, 1980 until her retirement from the Marine Corps on September 30th, 1998. For her military service, Barb received the Good Conduct Medal with 5 stars, 9 certificates of commendation, Navy Unit Commendation Medal, Navy Achievement Medal, Meritorious Unit Commendation with 3 stars, 6 letters of appreciation, Navy Commendation Medal with 1 star, and the Marine Corps Recruiting Ribbon with 1 star. Upon completion of her military service, Barb returned home where she received her teaching degree from SUNY Geneseo. She spent 6 years teaching in Caledonia, was a Perry School District administrator for 7 years, and spent 7 years as the superintendent for the New York State's School for the Blind in Batavia before retiring. Her hobbies include working out, spending time with the family and friends, and traveling, especially visiting the national parks with her husband, Robert. They have 5 children and 1 grandchild. I'm happy to present to you this certificate of appreciation from the board. Thank you.
I want to personally thank each and every one of you because Livingston County is a great place to be a veteran. It's been wonderful all of the times we're recognized. I really appreciate it. Now we'll do the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you. We have some minutes for your consideration from our last regular meeting, the 26th of March. Does anyone have any suggested changes to these minutes, these draft minutes? Hearing none, I look for a motion in a second, please.
Lester.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, those are approved. Abstract of claims is next.
Mr. Chairman, I move this abstract of claims and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Are there any questions or concerns on this set of claims against the county? Hearing none, the roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted.
Privilege of the floor is next on the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I ask privilege of the floor for Mark Anthony Busey, who is the campaign chair for the United Way County Worker Campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Good afternoon, my friends.
Good afternoon.
How are we doing today?
Good.
Good. Thank you again for having me here in Livingston County. Before I get started, I'd like to thank David. David, truly, thank you so much for all the time and attention that you've put in with United Way in building this partnership. We know that there was a strong foundation that was set before you, but we're excited for this partnership as we move forward. So thank you. Thank you to Kelly Kelly Greenway for also stepping in the SHAPE committee. Truly, we would not be able to do it without you as well. And also Maureen Wheeler, who is not here today because she's out in Philadelphia. But I am here today to talk to you about Livingston County specifically, and specifically what United Way does here in Livingston County. Each of you are here because truly you care about where you live and you want to give where you live. Last year when I was here, we talked about ALICE, and I'm not going to ask you to say it with me this time. I know that wasn't a huge one last year, but ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained Employed. Those are our friends that are working very hard each and every day to make ends meet, that are still working to make that paycheck, going to work, going home, but are still struggling to being able to put food on the table, to pay for their light bill, to pay for their gas bill. United Way is here to support those families. And in 2022, as we look at the data, we saw that ALICE actually rose in Livingston County, going from 30% to 41%. Think about that. Those are our friends, our neighbors, our family members, and maybe even some of us in this room today. When you donate through the Livingston County campaign, you can designate here, specifically to Livingston County, to ensure that your neighbors have those supports that they need to be successful. And so my friend Melissa is going to come up and tell you all the ways that we were able to partner over the last year. She also will be able to tell you what the dates of your campaign are. So get ready because it's starting today. Is everybody ready for campaign? All right, here's Melissa.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here today. And I want to acknowledge and thank you for everything that you did in 2024. So together as Livingston County, you raised $16,225, which is no small feat. And those funds stay in your community. So you are making impact with every dollar that you choose to donate, whether it be a one-time donation or through payroll. You also participated in our region-wide Day of Caring. You contributed hygiene kits to Noyes Hospital in Dansville. You also opened Livingston County's first cold weather code blue station, which I know is a huge feat, and I know that members of your community need it and are very appreciative that you have that. So thank you for putting that initiative forward. Like Mark Anthony said, your campaign starts today. You should be receiving an email in the next few days that will have the link to your pledging site, your user ID, and your password. There will also be paper forms floating around if you do need them, but you have the accessibility to go right online and get it done. Again, you also have the ability to donate, and it's important that you know that you have voice and choice of where your funds go. So if you want those funds designated directly to your county, you can check Livingston County. If there's organizations within Livingston County that you're super passionate about, look for those on our donor designation list. We have over 600 donor designated agencies that benefit from funds given from you through United Way. So thank you so much for participating. We're excited to have you kick off and to continue this partnership. Thank you.
We do have several resolutions on the preferred agenda.
Proclaiming the week of May 11th through the 17th, 2025 as National Skilled Nursing Care Week in Livingston County in celebration of Older Americans Month. Resolution authorizing the consolidation of the registrar districts for the towns of North Dansville and the village of Dansville. Proclaiming the month of May 2025 as Mental Health Month. Proclaiming the week of May 6th through the 12th, 2025 as National Nurses Week. Proclaiming the month of May 2025 as Foster Care Month in Livingston County. Proclaiming the month of May 2025 as Treatment Court Month. Appointing member to the Livingston County Traffic Safety Board, Dennis Prebos. And declaring surplus property, Center for Nursing and Rehabilitation.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there any discussion on any of these resolutions? Hearing none, I look for a motion in a second to bring it to a roll call vote.
Motion.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None. That's carried. A roll call vote on these, please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia.
Aye.
Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted.
Next, we have two resolutions that are going to require a separate roll call.
Mrs. Walker, authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign the following contracts for the Livingston County Department of Health, County of Monroe, and Virtual Mechanical Physical Therapy, PLLC.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Are there any questions on either of these contracts? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign the following contract for the Livingston County Department of Social Services. Teletask Inc.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Are there any concerns on this contract? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign the following contract for the Livingston County Veteran Services Agency, Harrington Outfitters.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Are there any concerns on this resolution? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage. Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Amending a portion of Resolution Number 2024-361, Summer Youth Employment Program.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia.
Aye.
Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Mr. Deming, awarding bid for the Central Services Department for MV feeder upgrades, Triple E Power and Lights LLC.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Are there any questions on this bid award? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Authorizing a professional services contract for professional engineering consultant services, Wendell WD Architecture Engineering Surveying and Landscape Architecture PC.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign the following grant award contract for the Livingston County Emergency Medical Services Department, New York State Department of Health.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Are there any questions on this grant award contract? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius. Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Awarding bid for the Livingston County Highway Department, Ramsey Constructors, Inc.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius. Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia.
Aye.
Mount Morris. North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Awarding bid for the Livingston County Highway Department, Rochester Earth, Inc.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Are there any concerns on this resolution? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign a license agreement, in Town of Canisius.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Are there any questions on this license agreement? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign the following contracts for the Livingston County Planning Department. Bonadio and Co. LLP and CNS Engineers, Inc.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Are there any questions or concerns on either of these two contracts? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign the following contracts for the Livingston County Sheriff's Office. Dansville School District, Genesee Valley BOCES, Keshequa School District, Livonia Central School District, Mount Morris Central School District, and York Central School District.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Are there any questions or concerns on this resolution? Hearing none, roll call please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia.
Aye.
Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign the following contract for the Livingston County Sheriff's Office. Cybercom International, Inc.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Is there any questions or concerns on this resolution? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Awarding bid for the Livingston County Sheriff's Office for a new law enforcement training simulator, TI Training LE LLC.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Deming. Are there any questions or concerns on awarding this bid? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332. Adopted. Mr. Knapp, amending the 2025 Livingston County budget, Sheriff's Office.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Are there any concerns on this resolution? Hearing none, roll call please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester. Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332. Adopted. Authorizing annual capital project account increases for 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332. Adopted. Authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign a letter of engagement for legal services, law offices of Hamburg and Weiss LLP.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll call vote please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332. Adopted. Amending the Livingston County 457 Deferred Compensation Plan document.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Are there any concerns or questions on this resolution? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 4722, absent 332. Adopted. Amending a portion of Resolution Number 2024-362, WIC Program Coordinator Melanie Plank.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll call please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland. Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia.
Aye.
Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332. Adopted. Amending the 2025 salary schedule, Sheriff's Office.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll call please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia.
Aye.
Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 4722, absent 332. Adopted. Authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign the following contract for the Livingston County Center for Nursing and Rehabilitation, Leading Age New York ProCare LLC.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Are there any concerns or discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester. Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville.
Aye.
Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted. Authorizing the chairman of the Livingston County Board of Supervisors to sign the following contract for the Livingston County Training and Professional Development Department, Geneseo Community College.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Is there any discussion or concerns on this contract? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo.
Aye.
Groveland.
Aye.
Lester. Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris.
Aye.
North Dansville. Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen.
Aye.
Portage.
Aye.
Sparta. Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 4722, absent 332, adopted.
David, do you have any updates for the board this afternoon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick updates. Reported to Ways and Means this week, but the board received a first quarter financial report from Treasurer Amy Davies on April 1st. Happy to report that across all funds, revenues and expenditures are tracking pretty nicely. General fund revenues are about 21% of the annual budget, so right about where we'd hope they'd be. And expenditures are about 15% of the annual budget. Other funds are trending similarly, but we're going to continue to monitor those. Of course, very early in the year, so we'll keep an eye on things. Believe it or not, we're starting preparations for the 2026 annual budget development this month. Once we get a little bit further in the process, I'll distribute a memo to the board to talk about some of the milestones with the budget preparation process. We are planning for a State of the County presentation to be made to the Board of Supervisors, scheduled for Wednesday, May 14th. I've invited Laura Lane and Melissa Savino from the Chamber of Commerce to provide a report on some of their annual activities and what's planned for the new year as well. Just a couple of months of celebration to recognize. April is Donate Life Month here in Livingston County. Just prior to this meeting, there was a small ceremony at the DMV downstairs that County Clerk Christine Secor put together for the acknowledgement and encouraging those individuals that are transacting business there to sign up to become an organ donor to help save a life. So the event featured Lynn Kennison, who's many of you know, and is herself a recipient of a organ donation. So it was a good event. Also this month is the Volunteer Appreciation Month here in Livingston County. Tomorrow is Volunteer Appreciation Day, and Livingston County cares to recognize the contributions of local volunteers who dedicate their time, talents, and resources to help strengthen their communities, is hosting their award ceremony tomorrow at the Big Tree Inn. So other than that, that concludes my report, unless there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Other business before the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Davis first, please.
I had one thing Don brought up the other day that he was thinking that it's possible that they would extend deer season to the 31st of January. That is nothing that's in the works at this point. And the only thing that is in the works that people ought to know, that Hochul wants to make us put insurance policies on each and every gun that you own of $1 million. Now, my thoughts is the only thing is she wants to know what guns you got. But that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else before I recognize Mr. Congrazio? Mr. Congrazio.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move into executive session for the employment history of a particular person. I would ask Shannon to stay, please, and Tracy McCaffey, please.
Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board, having met in executive session, hereby reports as follows. No action taken.
Is there any other business to come before the board this afternoon?
Move to adjourn from Geneseo.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Meeting stands adjourned.
There you are, ma'am.